The stars outside the academy window looked cold and distant. Megan Pierce stood there, watching them, her arms crossed over her chest. She had seen stars from Earth many times, but they never looked quite the same as they did from space. Out here, they were sharper, brighter, and somehow lonelier. A soft laugh came from behind her. Megan turned to see Hannah Cole sitting on her bunk, braiding her long brown hair. Hannah had a gentle face, the kind that made people trust her right away. Her eyes were warm and kind, and she smiled more than anyone Megan had ever known. "You are staring at the stars again," Hannah said. "You do that every night." "They help me think," Megan replied. She walked over and sat on the edge of her own bunk, facing her friend. "This place still feels strange to me. All these aliens walking around. All these rules." Hannah finished her braid and tossed it over her shoulder. "It felt strange to me too, at first. But we have been here for 2 years now. It is starting to feel like home." Megan shook her head. "Earth is home. Montana is home. This is just where we are." Hannah smiled softly. She never argued with Megan when she got like this. She simply waited until her friend's mood passed. That was one of the things Megan loved about her. Hannah never pushed. She just stayed. The two of them had known each other since they were children. They grew up on the same dusty ranch in Montana, running through wheat fields and climbing old oak trees. When the Galactic Coalition came to Earth and offered humans a place among the stars, Megan and Hannah had signed up together. They wanted to see what was out there. They wanted to be part of something bigger, but the galaxy was not always kind to humans. Earth was classified as a Class 1-2 death world. That meant it was considered one of the most dangerous planets in known space. The gravity was heavy. The weather was violent. The animals were predators, and the humans who survived there were built to endure all of it. To the softer species of the Coalition, humans were terrifying. They could run for hours without stopping. They could heal from wounds that would kill other beings. They could survive in heat, cold, and darkness. And when they were angry, they became something else entirely. Most aliens kept their distance from the human cadets at the academy. They whispered about them in the hallways. They watched them train with wide, nervous eyes. Some respected them. Some feared them, and some hated them. The Kethari were among those who hated. The Kethari were a reptilian species with green scales and yellow eyes. They walked tall and proud, and they believed themselves to be the most noble race in the galaxy. For centuries, they had held power in the Coalition. But now, humans were rising fast. Human ships were strong, human soldiers were brave, and human influence was growing. This made the Kethari angry. A group of Kethari cadets at the academy had started targeting humans. They never did anything openly. They were too smart for that. But they whispered insults. They sabotaged equipment. They spread rumors. And they made life hard for any human who dared to stand out. Hannah stood out. She was kind to everyone, even the aliens who feared her. She helped a small Valorian cadet named Tivus when he struggled with combat training. Tivus was thin and weak by human standards, with pale blue skin and large black eyes. He shook with fear every time he entered the simulation chamber. But Hannah sat with him. She talked to him. She taught him breathing exercises to calm his nerves. And slowly, Tivus began to improve. The other cadets noticed. They saw Hannah treating aliens as equals, as friends. Most of them admired her for it. But the Kethari did not. One evening, a Kethari cadet named Vorath approached Hannah in the dining hall. He was tall, with dark green scales and a scar running down his snout. His family was powerful. His father was a warlord, and Vorath believed that gave him the right to do whatever he wanted. "You spend too much time with the weak ones," Vorath said, his voice cold. "A Deathworlder should know her place. You are a beast. You should act like one." Hannah looked up at him calmly. She did not flinch. She did not look away. "I know exactly what I am," she said. "I am someone who helps others. That is my place." Vorath's eyes narrowed. He leaned closer, his breath hot and foul. You will regret those words, human. He walked away before Hannah could respond. She watched him go, her expression troubled. She did not tell Megan about the encounter. She did not want her friend to worry, and she did not want Megan to do something that would get her in trouble. But Megan noticed anyway. She always noticed when something was wrong with Hannah. That night, as they lay in their bunks, Megan spoke into the darkness. Something happened today. I can feel it. Hannah was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed. It was nothing. Just some Cathari being rude. It happens. Megan sat up, her eyes adjusting to the dim light. Which one? It does not matter. It matters to me. Hannah turned to face her. Even in the darkness, Megan could see the softness in her friend's eyes. Megan, please. I do not want you to fight my battles for me. I can handle a few mean words. Megan clenched her jaw. She wanted to argue. She wanted to find Voreth and teach him what happened to people who threatened her friend. But she saw the look on Hannah's face, and she forced herself to stay calm. Fine, she said quietly. But if anyone ever hurts you, I will make them pay. I swear it. Hannah smiled sadly. I know you would. That is what scares me sometimes. They did not speak again that night. But Megan lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, her hands curled into fists. She had made a promise to herself long ago. Back on that dusty ranch in Montana. She had promised to protect Hannah. No matter what. They had been through everything together. School, training, the long journey across the stars, and Megan would not let anything happen to her. She could not know that her promise would soon be tested in the worst possible way. She could not know that in just a few weeks, Hannah would be dead. And she could not know that her vengeance would shake the galaxy forever. The forest moon of Selvax 7 was beautiful and dangerous. Tall trees with purple leaves reached toward the sky, strange flowers glowed in the shadows, and somewhere in the thick undergrowth, creatures with sharp teeth waited for prey. It was the perfect place for a training exercise. The cadets had been dropped in groups of 5. Their mission was simple. Cross 20 miles of forest, reach the extraction point, and survive. For most species, this would be a difficult challenge. For humans, it was almost easy. Megan moved through the forest like a ghost. Her senses were sharp, her body was strong. She had trained for this kind of environment her whole life. Earth had forests too, and the things that lived in them were far more dangerous than anything on Selvax 7. Hannah was in a different group. They had been separated on purpose. The instructors said it was important for cadets to learn how to work with others, not just their friends. Megan had not liked it, but she had no choice. She finished the exercise in record time. She was the first one to reach the extraction point. She sat on a rock and waited for Hannah to arrive. An hour passed, then 2, then 3. Other groups came in, tired but alive. Megan watched each one carefully, looking for Hannah's face. But she never appeared. By the time the sun began to set, Megan knew something was wrong. She found the instructor, a tall alien with gray skin and 4 arms. His name was Commander Voss, and he was known for being fair but strict. Where is Hannah Cole? Megan asked. Her voice was calm, but her heart was pounding. Voss looked at his datapad. His expression changed. Something flickered in his eyes. Sadness? Maybe. Or guilt. There was an accident, he said slowly. Cadet Cole fell into a ravine. By the time her team found her, she was already gone. The words hit Megan like a punch to the chest. She could not breathe. She could not think. The world around her seemed to tilt and spin. That is not possible, she whispered. Hannah would never fall. She was too careful. Voss placed a hand on her shoulder. I am sorry. These things happen on death worlds. Even to the best of us. Megan wanted to scream. She wanted to grab the commander and shake him until he told her the truth. But she forced herself to stay still. She forced herself to breathe. I want to see the body, she said. That is not. I want to see her. Voss hesitated. Then he nodded slowly. They took Megan to the medical bay, where Hannah's body lay on a cold metal table. She looked peaceful, almost like she was sleeping. But there was no rise and fall of her chest, no warmth in her skin, no light in her eyes. Megan stood beside her for a long time. She did not cry. She did not speak. She just looked. And then she noticed something wrong. There were burns on Hannah's uniform, small, circular marks near her shoulder and side. They did not look like anything from the forest. They looked like energy weapon burns. Megan examined them closer. Her hands did not shake. Her mind was cold and clear now. The grief was still there, buried deep. But something else had taken its place. Something harder, something dangerous. She left the medical bay without a word. The next day, Megan returned to the forest. She found the ravine where Hannah had supposedly fallen. She climbed down into it and searched every inch of the ground. The official story said Hannah had slipped and hit her head on the rocks. But there was no blood on the rocks. No sign of a struggle. No evidence that anyone had fallen at all. Megan climbed back up and searched the area around the ravine. That was when she found the drag marks. Someone had pulled a body through the dirt, toward the edge. The marks were faint, almost invisible, but Megan's trained eyes saw them clearly. She followed the marks back into the forest. After about 50 meters, she found something hidden beneath a pile of leaves. It was a blade. A curved, ceremonial blade with strange symbols carved into the handle. Megan recognized those symbols. They were Kethari. Her blood turned to ice. Then it turned to fire. She brought her evidence to Commander Voss. She showed him the burns, the drag marks, the blade. She told him what she believed had happened. Hannah had been murdered by Kethari cadets, and the death had been made to look like an accident. Voss listened. He looked at the evidence, and then he shook his head. "This is not enough," he said. "The Kethari hold 3 seats on the Coalition Council. Without solid proof, without witnesses, we cannot make accusations against their nobles. So you are going to do nothing?" Megan's voice was quiet, but there was something terrible in it. "I am going to investigate through proper channels. But I am warning you, Cadet Pierce. Do not do anything foolish. Justice takes time." Megan stared at him for a long moment. Then she turned and walked away. She did not believe in proper channels anymore. She did not believe in justice that took time. Hannah was dead. Her killers were walking free, probably laughing about what they had done. That night, Tevis came to her room. The small Valorian's eyes were filled with tears. His thin hands were shaking. "I saw them," he said. "The day of the exercise. I saw 3 Kethari cadets following Hannah into the forest. Vorath, Selin, and Kravik. I thought they were just going to the same area. But now I know what they did." Megan listened. She did not interrupt. When Tevis was finished, she placed a hand on his shoulder. "Thank you," she said. "You were brave to tell me. What will you do?" Megan looked out the window at the cold, distant stars. Her reflection stared back at her. She barely recognized herself. The grief had changed her. The anger had changed her. She was no longer just a cadet. She was something else now. "I am going to find the truth," she said. "And then I am going to make them pay for what they did." Tevis shivered at the look in her eyes. He had heard stories about Deathworlders, about the things they could do when someone they loved was taken from them. Now he understood why the galaxy feared them. Megan did not sleep that night. She sat on her bunk and planned. She thought about what she knew and what she needed to learn. She made lists in her head. She considered every option, every path, every possible outcome. By morning, she had a plan. The first step was information. She needed to know more about Vorath, Selin, and Kravik. She needed to understand their routines, their weaknesses, their connections, and she needed evidence that would be impossible to ignore. Megan started with the surveillance system. The Academy had cameras everywhere, recording everything. If she could access the footage from the day of the training exercise, she might find proof of what the Kethari had done. She went to a cadet named Lucas Grant. He was a quiet human, with dark hair and clever hands. He spent most of his time working with computers, and he was the best hacker Megan knew. I need your help, she said. Lucas looked at her with cautious eyes. He had heard about Hannah. Everyone had. The official story was that she had died in an accident, but rumors were spreading. Some people whispered that it was murder. Some people whispered that the Cathari were involved. What do you need? Lucas asked. Access to the surveillance archives. The files from Selvac 7. The day of the exercise. Lucas was quiet for a moment. What she was asking was against the rules. If he was caught, he could be expelled. But he had known Hannah too. She had helped him once, back when he was struggling with physical training. She had been kind when others had laughed at him. Give me a few hours, he said. That evening, Lucas came to Megan's room with a small data chip. His face was pale, and his hands were unsteady. The footage from the forest was deleted, he said. Someone erased it the same day Hannah died. But I found something else. Footage from the shuttle bay, before the exercise started. It shows Vorath, Selin, and Kravik loading something onto their shuttle. Something that looks like weapons. Megan took the chip. Thank you. You have done enough. Whatever happens next, you are not part of it. Lucas nodded. He did not ask what she was planning. He did not want to know. The next step was gathering allies. Megan could not do this alone. She needed people who would help her. People who had no love for the Cathari and no fear of the consequences. She found them among the alien cadets. A Vortan named Drex, whose sister had been bullied by Cathari nobles on her homeworld. A Silith named Kira, whose entire colony had been exploited by Cathari trading companies. And Tivus, who was still grieving for Hannah and wanted to see justice done. Together, they watched the three Cathari. They tracked their movements. They listened to their conversations. And slowly, they built a picture of what had happened. Vorath was the leader. He had planned the murder. He had convinced Selin and Kravik to join him. They had followed Hannah into the forest, attacked her when she was alone, and killed her. Then they had thrown her body into the ravine and made it look like an accident. But they had been careless. They had talked about it afterward, bragging to other Cathari cadets about what they had done. They thought they were safe. They thought their family's power would protect them. They were wrong. Megan chose her moment carefully. She waited until Vorath was alone, walking through an empty corridor late at night. Then she stepped out of the shadows and blocked his path. Vorath stopped. His yellow eyes narrowed when he saw her. The Deathworlder, he said, his voice dripping with contempt. What do you want? You know what I want. Megan's voice was calm and cold. I want the truth about Hannah Cole. I want the truth about Hannah Cole. Vorath laughed. It was an ugly sound, like rocks grinding together. Your friend was weak. She thought she could speak to us as equals. She thought she could befriend our lessers and face no consequences. She was wrong. So you killed her. We put her in her place. Vorath stepped closer, his teeth bared in a cruel smile. And there is nothing you can do about it. My father is a warlord. My family has served on the Coalition Council for generations. You are nothing. A beast from a savage world. No one will believe you. No one will help you. Megan did not move. She did not blink. She let him talk, let him dig his own grave with every word. I do not need anyone to believe me, she said quietly. I just need them to hear. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. It was a recorder, and it had been running since the moment she stepped into the corridor. Vorath's smile disappeared. You recorded this? Every word. Megan pressed a button, and the device began transmitting. Within seconds, the recording was playing on every screen in the academy. In the dormitories, the classrooms, the dining halls, everywhere, Vorath's voice echoed through the station, confessing to murder. The Cathari lunged at her, his claws extended. But Megan was faster. She had been waiting for this. She caught his arm, twisted it, and drove her knee into his stomach. Vorath collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. Security arrived within minutes. They arrested Vorath and took him away. Megan watched him go, her face expressionless. But she knew this was not over. Vorath's family was powerful. Their lawyers would find a way to free him. The coalition would want to avoid a diplomatic incident. Justice would be delayed, weakened, denied. 2 days later, her fears came true. Vorath was released pending a formal inquiry. The inquiry would take months, maybe years. And in the end, nothing would happen. The Kethari would protect their own. Megan stood alone in her room, looking at Hannah's empty bunk. The anger inside her had grown into something vast and terrible. It filled every part of her. It drove out everything else. She had tried to do things the right way. She had gathered evidence. She had followed the rules. And the system had failed her. Now she would do things her way. That night, Megan stole a shuttle from the Academy docking bay. She disabled the tracking systems and set a course for Kethari space. Selen and Kravik had fled the Academy after Vorath's arrest. They had gone to a pleasure station called Velrath's Crown, a place where criminals and corrupt nobles gathered to hide from justice. Megan was going to find them. And this time, there would be no recordings, no trials, no mercy. The hunt had truly begun. Velrath's Crown floated in the darkness between stars. It was a massive station, built from stolen ships and salvaged metal. Lights flickered along its surface like dying fireflies. From a distance, it almost looked beautiful. Up close, it was a nest of criminals, smugglers, and corrupt nobles who had bought their way out of justice. Megan's stolen shuttle approached slowly. She had disabled the identification beacon, so the station's security systems could not trace her. She docked at a small port on the lower levels, where the guards asked no questions as long as you paid the right price. She stepped onto the station wearing simple clothes. A dark jacket, heavy boots, no weapons visible. But beneath her jacket, she carried 2 knives and a stolen energy pistol. She had taken them from the Academy armory before she left. The station was crowded and loud. Aliens of every species filled the corridors. Music played from hidden speakers. The air smelled of smoke and something sweet and rotten. Megan moved through the crowds like a shadow, her eyes scanning every face. She found information easily. Credits opened mouths, and fear opened them even wider. When people learned she was hunting Kethari nobles, some refused to help. Others smiled and told her exactly where to look. Selen and Kravik were in the upper levels, in a private suite reserved for wealthy guests. They had hired mercenaries to protect them. A dozen armed guards stood between Megan and her targets. She did not care. Megan studied the building for hours. She learned the guard rotations, the security codes, the layout of the corridors. She planned her attack with the same cold precision she had used back at the Academy. But this time, there would be no rules, no restraint. She struck at midnight, when the station's lights dimmed and most of its residents were drunk or sleeping. The first 2 guards never saw her coming. She moved out of the shadows and put them down before they could make a sound. Quick strikes to the throat and temple. Silent and efficient, she dragged their bodies into a storage room and kept moving. The next 4 guards were in the main corridor. They saw her approaching and raised their weapons. One of them shouted a warning. Megan did not slow down. She charged straight at them, faster than any normal creature should be able to move. Blaster fire filled the air around her. One bolt grazed her shoulder, burning through her jacket and into her skin. She ignored the pain. She reached the first guard and drove her knife into his chest. She spun and kicked the second one in the head, shattering his helmet. The third guard tried to run, but she caught him by the neck and threw him into the wall with enough force to crack the metal plating. The fourth guard dropped his weapon and fell to his knees. "Please," he begged. "I am just doing my job. I have a family." Megan looked at him. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Something that might have been mercy. Then she thought of Hannah, lying dead in that cold ravine, and the flicker died. "Then you should have picked a better job," she said. She knocked him unconscious and kept moving. Word spread through the station. A human female was cutting through the guards like they were made of paper. She was wounded, bleeding, and she would not stop. Some mercenaries fled rather than face her. Others tried to fight and learned too late what a Deathworlder could do. Megan reached the suite where Kravik was hiding. The door was reinforced, designed to withstand military-grade weapons. It would not stop her. She placed explosive charges on the hinges. The blast tore the door from its frame and sent it flying into the room. Kravik was standing behind a table, a blaster in his trembling hands. "Stay back," he screamed. "I am the son of Lord Varath. If you kill me, my family will destroy you." Megan stepped through the smoke and debris. Blood was running down her arm. Burn marks covered her jacket. But her eyes were steady, and her voice was calm. "Your family cannot protect you here." She was on him before he could fire. She knocked the blaster from his hand and drove him to the ground. He tried to fight back, clawing at her with his scaled hands. But Megan was stronger. Megan was faster, and Megan had nothing left to lose. She forced him to look at her. "You killed Hannah Cole. You murdered a girl who only ever tried to help others. Say her name." Kravik's yellow eyes were wide with terror. "I do not." Megan's grip tightened. "Say her name." "Hannah Cole," he gasped. "Her name was Hannah Cole. And now you are going to tell the galaxy what you did." She pulled out a small camera and activated it. The feed began broadcasting across the station's network. Then, beyond. Spreading through the communication relays to every corner of known space. "Tell them," Megan said, and Kravik told them. He confessed everything. The plan to kill Hannah. The attack in the forest. The cover-up. The names of the Kethari officials who had helped bury the truth. All of it, broadcast live to trillions of beings across the galaxy. When he was finished, Megan ended the broadcast. "Please," Kravik whispered. "I told you what you wanted. Let me go." Megan stood up slowly. She looked down at the pathetic creature before her. Part of her wanted to let him live. Part of her remembered that Hannah would not have wanted this. Hannah would have wanted justice, not revenge. But Hannah was dead. And the galaxy had already shown Megan what its justice was worth. "No," she said. She did not make it quick. She made sure he felt it. She made sure he knew why. Selen was easier to find. He had tried to flee to the docking bay when the attack began. Megan caught him there, surrounded by panicking civilians and burning wreckage. Their fight was short. Selen was a trained warrior. But Megan was something beyond training. She was rage made flesh. She was grief given form. She was every nightmare the galaxy had ever had about Deathworlders, and she was standing right in front of him. When it was over, Megan stood alone among the bodies. She was covered in blood. Some of it hers. Most of it not. Her hands were shaking. Her vision was blurring. The wounds she had ignored were catching up with her. But it was done. Hannah's killers were dead. The truth had been broadcast across the galaxy. Nothing would ever be the same. Megan limped toward the docking bay. She did not know where she would go next. She did not know if she would survive. But for the first time since Hannah died, she felt something other than rage. She felt peace. The broadcast changed everything. Across the galaxy, trillions of beings watched Kravik's confession. They saw a Kethari noble admit to murdering a human cadet. They heard the names of officials who had helped cover it up, and they saw what happened when you pushed a Deathworlder too far. The reaction was immediate and violent. On Kethari worlds, protests erupted. Citizens who had long suffered under the rule of corrupt nobles took to the streets. They demanded accountability. They demanded change. For the first time in centuries, the great families faced real opposition from their own people. 3 Kethari council seats were suspended pending investigation. Warrants were issued for dozens of officials. Lord Varath, the father of Kravik and uncle of Varath, fled to the outer territories rather than face trial. The coalition was in chaos. Emergency sessions were called. Diplomats shouted at each other across crowded chambers. Some wanted to condemn Megan Pierce as a murderer and terrorist. Others called her a hero who had exposed a terrible crime. The humans said nothing. They did not need to. Their silence spoke louder than any words. Megan was captured 3 days after the attack on Velrath's crown. Her shuttle had run out of fuel in an empty sector of space. When Coalition security forces boarded her vessel, they found her sitting calmly in the pilot's chair, waiting for them. She did not resist. She did not speak. She simply let them take her. The trial was held on the Coalition's capital station, in a courtroom that could seat 10,000 beings. Every species sent representatives. Every news network broadcast the proceedings. It was the most watched event in galactic history. The charges were severe: murder, destruction of property, inciting interspecies conflict, violation of Coalition law. The prosecution argued that Megan had taken justice into her own hands and caused untold damage to the delicate balance of galactic politics. This human is a monster, the Cathari prosecutor declared. She killed 2 citizens of the Coalition in cold blood. She broadcast their deaths for the galaxy to see. She must be executed to show that such barbarism will not be tolerated. Reason. But when it was time for the defense to speak, something unexpected happened. Representatives from dozens of species rose to speak on Megan's behalf. A Vortan general told the story of how human soldiers had saved his fleet during the Battle of Korax Nebula, fighting beside his people when no one else would help. A Silith elder described how human doctors had cured a plague that was killing her colony, asking for nothing in return. A Valorian diplomat spoke of Hannah Cole, the young woman who had helped their cadet Tivus, the young woman whose murder had started all of this. And then Tivus himself took the stand. The small Valorian walked slowly to the center of the courtroom. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. "I knew Hannah Cole," he said. "She was kind to me when others were cruel. She helped me when I was weak. She treated me as an equal. Even though I was small and afraid and came from a lesser species, she was the best of humanity." He turned to look at the tribunal judges. His large black eyes were filled with tears. And she was murdered. She was murdered by nobles who believed they could do anything they wanted. She was murdered, and the Coalition did nothing. The system failed her. It failed Megan Pierce. And Megan did what any of us would have done if we had the strength. She got justice for her friend. Tivus paused. He looked at Megan, sitting alone at the defendant's table, and he bowed his head. "The Cathari call her a monster. I call her human. And I am proud to have known her." The courtroom erupted in noise. Judges called for order. Prosecutors objected. But the damage was done. The galaxy had heard the truth. Not just about what Megan had done, but about why she had done it. The tribunal deliberated for 3 days. The arguments were fierce. Some judges wanted execution. Some wanted imprisonment. Some wanted full acquittal. In the end, they reached a compromise that satisfied no one. Megan Pierce was found guilty of the charges against her. But in light of the circumstances, her sentence would not be death. Instead, she would be exiled from Coalition space forever. She would be given a ship, supplies, and one chance to leave. If she ever returned, she would be killed on sight. Megan accepted the sentence without expression. She had expected worse. Part of her had wanted worse. Living with what she had done, living without Hannah, felt like a punishment far greater than death. On the day of her exile, thousands gathered at the docking bay to watch her leave. Most of them were human, but not all. There were Vortons, and Siliths, and Valorians. There were beings from species that had never spoken to humans before. They had come to see the woman who had shaken the galaxy. Megan walked through the crowd in silence. Her eyes were fixed straight ahead. She did not smile or wave or acknowledge the people around her. But as she reached her ship, someone called out to her, "Pierce." She turned. Tivus was pushing through the crowd, running toward her on his thin legs. He reached her, breathing hard, and pressed something into her hand. It was a small photograph. Hannah and Megan, smiling, standing together at the academy on their first day. "I found it in her things," Tivus said. "I thought you should have it." Megan looked at the photograph. For the first time since the trial began, something cracked in her expression. Her eyes glistened. Her jaw trembled. "Thank you," she whispered. She turned and boarded her ship without another word. The engines fired. The docking clamps released. And slowly, the small vessel rose from the station and turned toward the unknown reaches of space. Megan sat alone in the pilot's chair, holding the photograph in her hands. She looked at Hannah's smiling face, and she remembered the girl who had been her friend, her sister, her home. "I am sorry," she said softly. "I am sorry I could not save you. I am sorry it had to end this way." She placed the photograph on the console where she could see it, and she set a course for the stars. Behind her, the galaxy continued to change. The Cathari Empire was crumbling, humans were rising, and everywhere, beings whispered the name of the woman who had started it all. They called her many things: murderer, hero, monster, avenger. But the humans called her something else. They called her one of their own, and they remembered what she had taught the galaxy: that humanity was capable of great kindness and great love, that they would protect the weak and stand against injustice, and that if you hurt someone they cared about, they would hunt you to the ends of the universe and beyond. Megan Pierce flew into the darkness, alone but not forgotten, and the galaxy would never be the same.